It is the 26th of December. Exactly 1,020 days back, the Wuhan virus was declared a pandemic, a globally prevalent infectious disease. It sent the world into a tailspin of lockdowns, restrictions, deaths, and agony. As the country which gave us this virus celebrated its victory over it with light shows and pool parties. And what's worse, China mocked the suffering of the others. It carried sickening reports like these, celebrating the sight of burning pyres in India. And guess what? This vultureism has backfired. The vulture is now preying on its master. Have a look at these images. They are from a crematorium in China. Stretchers carrying dead bodies have lined up outside it. People are waiting for hours to cremate their loved ones. The lines are stretching as far as the eye can see. And I'm not talking about one region, one province, or one city. This is the state of affairs all over China. Have a look at these images now. They are from the 25th of December. They show a funeral parlor in the city of Jinan. On Sunday, large crowds of people gathered outside it, voicing their frustration over the long lines. Some were even filmed shouting at the authorities. In Beijing, infected residents have filled up emergency wards. Oxygen cylinders are running out, and yet there is no end to the influx of ambulances with new patients. In Shanghai, the situation is even worse. Last Friday, we told you how half of the city's residents could get infected, how experts based in Shanghai were saying the city would definitely fall. And tonight, we have statements from doctors and frontline workers, their remarks only vindicating our reportage. They say hospitals in the city are overwhelmed top to bottom. There are no beds, no emergency staff, only a tsunami of COVID-19 patients. You have to listen to these voices.
The hospital is just overwhelmed from top to bottom. So, the ER filled up with people. A lot of them got admitted to the hospital. They're not getting better in a day or two, so there's no flow. And therefore, people keep coming to the ER, but they can't go upstairs into hospital rooms, so they're stuck in the ER. There was no preparation. Like, nobody knew. Like, the decision was made on a Sunday, and on Monday, people were showing up in the ER saying, oh, I don't need to scan, I don't need to get tested, and then they started showing up sick. But, there was no stockpiling of medications.
As a private facility, usually we never refuse patients. No. And it's possible that we arrive there, because we don't have beds anymore, or enough resources to treat the patient.
The city's residents have reaffirmed these statements. They say everyone around them is infected. There is no way they can avoid this wave. Listen to this now.
Under
current circumstances, everyone is at risk of getting infected with COVID-19. It's inevitable. It's best not to be overly worried. We cannot avoid it. We cannot avoid it anyway. So all we can do is take care of our own health. That's how I see it.
Most of the people I have interacted with have either been infected or tested positive in the past. In my personal estimation, the peak of infections appears to have arrived earlier than was reported.
And it's true what they say. Karma is a boomerang. The consequences of your actions will one day come back to haunt you. And I say this because for months, China found pleasure in the suffering of others. It shared insensitive posts mocking India's struggle. It made heartless comparisons and commentary. This moral bankruptcy has cost the country dear. The country is facing a double whammy. On one hand, infections are spiking at an alarming pace. And on the other, the country is running out of blood stocks. This is according to the Bloomberg. It says multiple regions across China are facing a shortage of blood, meaning there are not enough stocks to help the patients in dire need. They are falling to critically low levels. The Shandong Blood Center saying blood groups A and O have been kept at red alert for several days now. What explains this exactly, and why is there a shortage? Because of the spike in infections, it has overwhelmed the hospitals and clinics, depleted the stocks of clinical blood for supply. And so the authorities are asking the citizens to actively donate blood to those in need. And that's not even all. They say this shortage will reach an all-time high around Lunar New Year. That is when the second wave of this subvariant is expected to strike China. All these developments are worrying. What's even more worrying are efforts to censor information about this. Have a look at this headline now. It was carried by Xinhua on Sunday. This is a state-run Chinese news agency. It says China's National Health Commission has stopped publishing daily COVID-19 information. Stop doing so, meaning it will no longer give out details about daily COVID-19 data in the country. And why is that? Because authorities have doubts about the reliability. What a beautiful excuse. What China is essentially trying to say is that the authorities themselves cannot confirm the veracity of cases, basically how many of them are actually testing positive, and how many of the new cases are bogus. How do we even perceive something like this? For all its technological might, for all its claims of having a robust health infrastructure, China cannot even keep track of the new infections. Are we really supposed to believe this? By all means, this is yet another excuse to fool the world. And here's something else China will not tell you: the scale of this tragedy in rural China. In the small towns, villages, counties, reports say this time the pandemic is coming for China's countryside, to rural communities that are older and more vulnerable. These are areas where natural immunity is non-existent, areas where vaccine hesitancy is stubbornly high. And these areas have remained unaffected so far. This time, they will not be able to escape the wave. Millions in China are expected to go back home for New Year's to small cities and regions where few major outbreaks have been reported. And as they go back home, they will take this lethal subvariant along. Reports say this could lead to an extraordinarily severe outbreak in rural China, an outbreak that the authorities will not be able to manage. Here's why. In 2021, the Chinese government itself said that there were only 4.95 hospital beds for every 1,000 people in the rural areas. Plus, there were only 1.8 doctors for every 1,000 people in these parts. If we speak of vaccination rates, only 65.8% of Chinese citizens over 80 are fully vaccinated as of December 2022. And on top of that, they have been vaccinated with made-in-China shots. My point here is simple. Rural China is ill-equipped to deal with this onslaught. And what's worse, we may never really know what's about to go down there, thanks to China's censors. But what we can tell you is that a sense of panic has gripped the country's leadership, and which is why the country's president is making statements like these. Feasibly protect people's lives, quote unquote. That's right, this statement has come from Xi Jinping himself. And it's by far his first response on the situation after loosening the stringent zero-COVID policy. Let me quote what he has said. We should launch the patriotic health campaign in a more targeted way, fortify a community line of defense for epidemic prevention and control, and feasibly protect people's lives, safety, and health. This is unusual to say the least. For the last 3 years, the Chinese president has rarely spoken about people suffering, forget acknowledging it, and this may just mark the first time he has actually urged the authorities to step up their efforts and save the people's lives. And this begs the question, is Xi Jinping afraid? Is this an admission of fear? Has he sensed the impending doom? Has he realized what awaits his countrymen? Well, it certainly seems like that. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.